Can I just turn to Philip now? Now, Philip had a long career in IT and then had a very important career change and is now studying here at Untech at our Waitakere campus for his Bachelor's of Social Practice. So a student representative on the panel. So, Philip, I haven't given you a chance yet to give us your sense of the essence of what's at stake here with this new structure. Over to you.
Thank you, Rod. I'm not an expert on the Supercity, but I do speak for community. And there are a number of areas relating to community that are of great concern with the Auckland Supercity. We're talking about a community of 1.4 million people who have not been consulted and have not been informed, and at the grassroots level. So there may be a number of community groups that are representing those people who are supporting the Supercity, and I neither support nor am I opposed to it. But the fact is that the community in general, they're told that they are being negative about this whole aspect of the Auckland Supercity. Now, democracy invokes the notion of democracy invokes the notion of freedom, but there hasn't been any democracy in this whole process. I still have this vision of Rodney Hyde on a steamroller driving through Auckland and pushing this thing through and ignoring the community. And how would we consult the community? Well, yeah, sure enough, we don't want this process to take 30 years. It has to take a much shorter time frame than 30 years, but there has to be consultation. Now, community development is, the premise of community development is bottom up, not top down. And this whole process has been top down. What is being presented as a top down process, it's not a bottom up process at all. I'm really concerned about the power that the mayor would have, particularly as we don't have a great choice of candidates for mayor either. Of those candidates, who has the strength, the power, the ability...
Penny Bright's in the back row. He's one of the candidates.
to drive this community of 1.4 million people. Well, I haven't seen anybody stand up to give me that confidence so far. So if this is a marketing campaign for a business or for a product that I was running, I would say that 96% of the product is going to remain on the shelf. And it's not going to be sold. So that I've done a lot of research in the last few weeks on the Supercity, and of the information that is available, most of the information is negative. It's not positive information. The polls that have been conducted of people indicate people within the areas which are going to become the Supercity indicate that anywhere between 84 and 96% of people reject the Supercity. Not because they necessarily reject it, because they just don't understand what's going on. They don't understand this process of the structures. They are afraid of what is going to happen to the assets. Are the assets just going to be stripped and sold off like governments have done in the past? Or are these just going to be big changes? We look at growth. Is the Supercity about growth or is it about efficiency? Well, I've read quite a lot of stuff where it states that the reason for bringing the Supercity together is because of inefficiencies within the cities of North Shore, Manukau, Waitakere and Auckland. Well, if they are inefficient and we have the structure which doesn't look like a fantastic structure to me, aren't we just going to end up with this huge, inefficient, ineffective bureaucracy that is not going to do anything for the community? The fact that there isn't Maori representation also, I think, is quite a big negative. But community in general doesn't support it. It's not that they're negative, they don't understand what's going on. They haven't been included, they've been disenfranchised, they've been excluded.
Yeah. Well, if I could just turn to Peter's advice on this, actually, and to Shane and Nikki's too, the Royal Commission process was a very extensive one. There was an amazing number of submissions, and there was an awful lot of hearings as well. So that's been a very thorough process. Now, the cynic might say that, it tends to focus around Rodney Hyde here, that Rodney Hyde just never even read it and just sort of came up with his very brief form of what to do. But that has since been modified a great deal by the Select Committee through 3 bills, again with an awful lot of submissions on the part of the public. So has this really been an exercise that has had some good consultation, or an exercise that hasn't? But what do you reckon, Peter?
I think first, it's an exercise which has favoured people who understand how to use the kind of consultative processes we have. And that's not the entire community. I think second, and this is a more difficult one, when in New Zealand we do consultation, we do it on the basis of saying, here's what we intend to do, tell us what you think about it. And so people tell them what they think about it, and they then make a decision. It's a good way of dividing communities, because it doesn't allow for a community conversation. And there's a lot of work, for example, coming out of Canada around, okay, if you've got a big, major issue for a community or a country to deal with, you actually need to have a conversation about it. And one of the problems we've got is that we are still tied up with notions of representative democracy, that how we actually participate is once every 3 years, we vote for a bunch of people who then go away and do things to us. In the midterm, they spend the first year working out what they're there to do, the second year doing something, and the third year worrying about how they get back again. So that there are some very real problems about the way we consult, and some very real problems about the assumptions we bring to consultation. If you look at what's happening with Auckland, to get to a level of knowledge where you can have an intelligent debate about the options for the governance of a city like Auckland requires a huge amount of effort. And to be, for most people, most of the time, quite reasonably, local government is terribly boring, and why would you spend your time learning about it? So that's part of the context. And we haven't, we need the kind of debate that is more around relationships and outcomes, and less about structures and detail. And hopefully that will start to emerge over the next year or two as the new council comes into office and works out how it can establish itself as legitimate despite the process it's come through.
And do you think that the essential structure that we're going to get will actually facilitate that if the newly elected members are smart enough to understand that they now have to really create those relationships and really put some flesh on those bones?
I actually think the potential's there. I think it's going to need quite a lot of hard work, and it's going to need a lot of reflection about how do all of the different elements work. And one of the things we haven't talked about much is the role of the Auckland Social Policy Forum. Now, what sits behind that is the sense that central government spends $12 billion a year delivering services in Auckland. And increasingly we know, mainly from overseas research rather than New Zealand research, that top-down, centrally designed social programs miss a lot of their targets and actually waste a lot of money. So I think one of the things on the agenda there is going to be, how do we get services which are more attuned to the circumstances of the small individual idiosyncratic places and communities where they're delivered. And that gets you very much into a community governance mode of thinking about how you work. So I think there are going to be some, what I think of as medium-term imperatives around, hey, we've got to actually work a lot better than we have in the past, because we can't afford not to. But to do the analysis to arrive at that kind of view, it's taken me years, and I don't expect the broader community to spend those sorts of years. So that's another part of the entire problem we've got.